Should say not be one. Very short. Maria? Will you lead the report from Sandra Hagan, the election committee report?
Yeah, I can do that.
Seeing you are the monitor of the election committee. So I thought that would be appropriate.
That's fine.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's scheduled 10:30. Good morning. It's 9:30 and we are calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum present with Secretary Maria Perkins here, Vice President Bill Herman, myself, Dan Sullivan, and Treasurer Debbie Isaacs. Also present is Andrew Smolin, our Comptroller, Richard Lawrence, our Executive Officer, and Christina Rodriguez, our Executive Secretary. We can now stand for the invocation, and Ann, would you be willing to give it?
Our Father, I pray for guidance and tolerance for our board as they strive to work together in harmony. Your Son, Jesus Christ, was sent to our world not to condemn the world, but that we might have life more abundantly. And as the angels sang to the shepherds on the night of Jesus' birth, peace on earth and goodwill toward men. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Secretary's report. Does the secretary have anything to report?
She does. Just a second. Okay. I watched last month's meeting, and before I go into the letters that I received and the remainder of my report, I want to make a statement. I'll make two statements. Please silence all cell phones. But I do want to make a statement regarding the secretary report. Anything that I do in my capacity as a board member, specifically as secretary, is reportable, and I will continue to report my actions. So whether someone would like to hear what I have to report is completely different, but I do not interrupt anyone during their reports, and I expect the same courtesy during mine. Thank you. In my capacity as secretary, I requested a list of the members who are delinquent with the amount delinquent, a list of job titles, not names, and actual salaries of all personnel, dates that the front office will be closed from December to January, follow-up on the Rio Grande Electric energy audit and the findings, the facility use rental agreement, and its revisions based on the input provided by the board per the contingency of the vote that took place in September. I once again asked for a formal tour of the office and to learn about what our employees do, as well as for specific items to be addressed while in executive session. The information I requested was not provided. I was told that a tour would be disruptive and there was no executive session planned for this meeting. So I expect the answers to those items I requested via email. As a board member, we should know who is employed by the association and what it is that they do. It is more disruptive for a board member to show up unannounced and individually ask an employee about themselves and what they do to support the association. In every organization that I've worked with or for, I had a formal tour of the facilities and knew what each employee did. Over the last month, I received several letters of concern. I sent these letters to the board in advance to seek answers prior to the meeting, and I will share those as well. There are several other letters that I still owe members a response to, and I will get to those. Common property destruction. I received a complaint that a mobile home was delivered to Unit 27, and the road along with the drainage ditch area in front of where the home was placed has been damaged. The road itself has 2 areas where the asphalt was broken. I was told by Mr. Sullivan that this matter needs to be reported to the EO for further action. So, Mr. Lawrence, please consider my oration of this complaint as your notification. I received a complaint about the picnic tables at the swim park area, which wound up also being posted online. They are in very bad condition and are dangerous. And are there any updates as to when this will get fixed? That is the question I asked. I was not given an answer to this concern. I received a concern about the bus stops from 2 members, and I also share that concern. The question was asked to me if the fort could look into putting some sort of awning or covering over the benches at the bus stops so that children are not standing in the rain or cold without shelter while waiting for the bus to get them to school. I was told by Mr. Sullivan that if a member wants to have these done, they need to submit a proposal of how much it will cost to do so to the EO. This is not an appropriate course of action. We pay staff to do this kind of research, and we first need to even see if it's feasible to do. So, Mr. Lawrence, is this something that the fort can even look into? Lastly, I was sent an email from a member in good standing yesterday, and I will read it in full as it prompted me to do some further research, which I found to be alarming, needing immediate board attention. So bear with me, I'm going to read that letter. This letter is from Jenny Alexander, and it says, I am requesting the following documents and attachments be presented to the Board of Directors, Executive Officer, and the membership in attendance in the Board of Director open meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 19th, 2018. First and foremost, Fort Clark Springs Association's Declaration of Protective Restrictions states that our association must uphold all our governing documents. The Declaration of Protective Restrictions was revised in March of 2017 and was not handled according to our bylaws. It is required that revisions, amendments, adoption of our Declaration of Protective Restrictions are to be counted and approved by an independent auditing firm. The votes were counted by the Board of Directors at a board workshop. Secondly, I have not been given the actual count, but we have roughly 1,100 members, and all are eligible to vote. Then that vote totals for the declaration revision in the minutes of April 15th, 2017 is not the 62% stated in the dispatch that was sent. As counted and referenced in these minutes, there were 317 for and 188 against, totaling 505 votes. Additionally, the requirement according to Texas Property Code 209.0041.h is no less than 67% of voting members. I understand that an unknown source has provided documentation that the president of the Board of Directors of Fort Clark Springs Association has been aware of this error for some time and has failed the association by not rectifying the discrepancy sooner. I believe it is necessary that this be addressed publicly and an answer be given by the parties responsible for allowing this to continue to be swept under the rug, so to speak. This is not a matter that needs to be pondered and a response formulated. I believe the membership of Fort Clark Springs is owed an honest, forthcoming, truthful apology for from the president and other directors that were aware. Thank you for your assistance in addressing this. I do appreciate all that you are doing for our membership. I apologize for the lack of respect. And then she answers, respectfully submitted, Jenny Alexander. Now, I did receive this yesterday, and I at first had no idea what source document she was talking about, so I did review all of the source documents she sent. And she sent a copy of the dispatch saying that some 62% of voting members voted for the declaration. She also sent an excerpt of Property Code 209 where it says, except as provided by the subsection, a declaration may be amended only by a vote of 67% of the total voters allowed to property owners entitled to vote on the amendment of the declaration. And then she sent an email that was from a concerned member, Mr. Bill Hahn, bringing light to the fact that an independent auditing firm was not hired to count these ballots, as well as an email from the then secretary of the board addressing that exact issue and stating in our bylaws where it says that we have to have this sent to an annual audit or to an auditing firm that's impartial, designated by the board. And then she sent the minutes from the April 15th, 2017 meeting, which stated that it was announced that 317 voted for yes and 188 voted for no. And considering I don't know how many members we had that could vote at that time, assuming it's in the realm of 1,100 as she's saying, or 1,200 to give it a little bit more of a realistic number based on what I know now, 67% of that would have meant that we needed 804 votes to have participated in that election. And in all the minutes, including the annual meeting, which I watched the video for, there was no indication of what number of votes did not count towards this vote. So we have a really big issue that I feel like we need to address. Hold on now. So don't shoot the messenger, but that's my report. Yes, sir.
First, just a comment, personal opinion. I think your report went far beyond this, what a secretary's report is. Unfortunately, the letter involving the declaration from Jenny Alexander was not presented to us in advance. I know that wasn't your fault. But let me clarify a couple of things. This happens an awful lot with Jenny Alexander and sometimes even directors. They need to read all of the law and all of our bylaws. The requirement for an auditing firm to handle the election results refers to the election of directors. Nowhere in there does that requirement refer to voting for or against adopting a new declaration of protective restrictions. So that claim for that requirement is erroneous. The 67% majority, if you read all of the section involving that, you'll find that's if our documents do not provide for any other percentage. And our documents do provide for a simple majority of vote of the membership. So there is no 67% requirement for approval of the declarations.
So I'm gonna go ahead and answer that too, because I thought the same thing. And what was really nice was the email that I was provided spelled it all out. In Article 6, Section 3 of our current bylaws, and this is actually applicable to both sets of bylaws, the old ones and the new ones. This states an item for the agenda that requires a vote of the membership shall follow a procedure the same as for the election of directors as stated in Article 4, Section 3. And that says, annual tabulation and certification of the mailed votes shall be handled by an impartial auditing firm designated by the board of directors. So at first I thought the same thing because I had read the election procedures and that's what I thought as well. But then when I read this email and then went back to both sets of bylaws, it in fact does say that in order for us to do a vote with a membership, it has to be done the same way we would be doing that with the board of
Are
directors.
you reading the bylaws that were in effect at the time?
I read them both, yes, I read both. And actually, you did a great job of summarizing it in this email, because this email is from you to the board.
Well, the interpretation by the board at that time was that it was not a requirement to spend $5,000 to have an auditing firm count those votes. But we take all those anonymous concerns and complaints and make note of them. And next we'll move to the treasurer's report.
I got one question. Can I ask a question on this thing?
Sure.
So we can interpret ourselves as board members and ignore our bylaws and our declarations?
They were not ignored, Deborah. They were not ignored. They were taken in, read, discussed, debated, and decided that they did not apply. Now, of course, this comes with no warning, so I don't have anything
I
set
don't
here.
know. I'm just sitting here, I'm reading it, the same thing she just read. I don't
Yeah.
have the old ones, I've got the new ones, but I didn't have.
Well, to start with, this is not on the agenda for this meeting, so
No, sir,
move
but
to
the
the treasurer's
declarations are.
report.
The declarations are in the agenda, and if we have this very legitimate issue raised, then we do need to discuss that further, and we need to do something about it.
Discussion is over. We told you what it says, how it was interpreted, how it was handled. We listened patiently to your entire multi-page report that you use the secretary's platform as to present, and it's now time to move to the treasurer's report.
Test 1, 2. The reconciled bank balances for the month of November, our Texas Community Checking Account, $36,682,062. Texas Community Credit Card Account, $11,790.09. Texas Community Money Market Account, $2,666.61. Texas Community Flag Account, which that's a new account that we're reporting now. That is for the flags that people are donating to. That account is $1,365. The Texas Community Restricted Fund, $25,000. Texas Community Bank balances are $77,504.32. The Bracketville Bank and Trust General Fund, $53,089.32. Payroll account, $9,323.99. The restricted fund, hang on. The restricted fund is $3,058,488.26 of, ma'am, repeat it. $358,488.26, of which $40,962.98 is in the restricted historical preservation account.
I guess as of when? November?
November,
30th?
yes.
Thank you.
The Los Morris account, $1,665.50. The Fort Clark Hail Damage Repair Fund, $24,173.19, for a grand total of $524,244.58. That's in our bank balances. Our bank transfers for the month of November: Texas Community Credit Card Account to the Texas Community Checking Account, $126,000. That's to fund operating expenses. Bank and Trust Restricted Fund to Texas Community Restricted Fund, $25,000 to fund TCB account. I've got a question on that after I finish. Bank and Trust General Account to Bank and Trust Payroll Account, $65,000 for a grand total of $216,000 for the month of November, which was $56,812.13 more than October. This account, this 65,000, no, 25,000. What is that actually to fund in Texas Community Bank? Why did we move that money over to there?
We opened an account. We opened an account with Texas Community Bank as a matter of convenience and efficiency, so that we would be able to do transfers between the restricted fund and the general fund in order to pay for expenses, to reimburse the general fund for restricted fund expenses that the general fund pays. We pay all our bills out of the general fund, but if any of those bills are for restricted fund purposes, then the restricted fund has to reimburse. And having the restricted fund bank account in here and the account from which our payments are made in Del Rio caused us quite a lot of logistical issues. So last month, the board approved the opening of another restricted fund bank account with the Texas Community Bank in Del Rio, and that account was opened, and we transferred $25,000 from this restricted fund to that restricted fund account just to have the money available there for this purpose.
Okay, thank you.
There's no money left the restricted fund and no money left the association.
Okay, okay, so it's for convenience for that restricted fund over there, okay. That was all the report here. Or the financials, I see we got some more a while ago for the month of November. Are they gonna be like that from now on? Because they sure are decreased down in what information they give.
Well, you may recall that at last meeting you were asking for financials, and you said, do we have to wait till March? And I reminded you that indeed, for us to be able to produce all the financials, that is our goal, that we would do our best to produce some financials for you in the current month. And so what we did was we reported for you both October and November year to date, and so that's what you have in front of you.
But we still don't have, I asked
You don't
for
have the full-
September's.
you do
I
not-
didn't, I only wanted September's right now.
No, and if you recall, what we're going to do is allow the auditors to come in and address the year-end financials.
Okay. Well, I went through those the other day, and Christie gave me some more, but those sure did, they didn't state where the money was really coming from to the extent that we were getting. And that's just a question I had. Thank you. I'm done.
Is that it, Deb?
Yes.
Thank you. Before we move on to the executive officer's report, I'd like to come back to the secretary's report and suggest, if it's at the pleasure of the board, that the secretary submit all those concerns in writing to the administration, and that the administration research and review and provide any appropriate reply to them by our board meeting in January.
Explain that again, please.
Excuse me?
Can you explain that again? So you want me to send the information to Mr. Lawrence and have him?
Possibly the letter that you read or whatever, your outline.
Ms. Alexander is actually sending that to the whole board. I asked her to do that when she sent it to me. I
You
said,
asked
please.
her to do that, okay.
Well, she sent it to me as a
submit it.
secretary, and I said, well, please make sure you send this to the whole board. So everybody
Yeah,
is going to have all of those
that.
attachments.
Just all I'm asking is that what your concerns are transmitted in writing to the administration, and that we then instruct the administration to research those questions and provide a response to them by the January board meeting.
And you're referring specifically to the ones from Ms. Alexander, because the other ones I did send to all of the board, including administration. and you responded on behalf of the administration.
I responded in behalf of what the agenda was going to be for this month, yes. I don't want to get into a long discussion on this. I think it's very simple. Take the concerns that either you and Ms. Alexander have, present them to our administration, let them prepare a response form, given adequate time to review and read all the documents, verify them, and then we know where we're at and we got it right. So is there a problem with that?
No, I have no issue with that, and if we're going to do that, which is a great idea, then I also say that we have no business proposing changes to the declarations until the declarations are correctly voted on by membership. So we're going to have to wait for that until we determine if...
No, we don't have to wait for that just because you said that. It can still be proposed. The only change being proposed to the declaration is a change to be presented to the membership to vote on whether the architectural committee is required to meet weekly or twice a month.
Yes, sir, I understand that, but that is to a declaration that is now being refuted as even accurate, because even when you just do the random raw numbers, and I'm not very good at math in public, but when you do the raw numbers, even 588 people, or whatever she said that number was, that's not a majority of 1,100, 1,200 people. So a majority vote is 50% plus one.
Once again, I'll need to correct you, Director Perkins. It states a majority of those members voting, not a majority of the members, but a majority of those voting.
Well then, sir, what needed to have been announced, as it was during our Board of Director election, is the number of ballots that were mailed, the number of ballots that were not able to be counted because they were lumped up with other ballots, how many said yes and how many said no. And at that point in time, we can determine what a majority vote is. But I did watch the video, and the video does not say any of that information. So it does call into question what the board did. And I am part of the board, so I am not going to feel confident being a member of this board and not raising the concern.
Are you objecting to what I suggested? Of providing your concerns? You're airing out all these concerns. That's not what we're going to do here.
This is one simple concern that was brought to me by a member that I actually agree with.
Yeah.
No, sir, the accounting firm did not count anything, and that is very clearly stated in the video.
Yeah, the accounting firm was not involved in the vote on the declarations. But does the administration understand that Secretary Perkins is going to provide those concerns that were aired by her from other members, I guess, to you in writing? And then we'll have a month to research them, to go in and review the videos, review all the documents, and be able to give a proper response. Is that understood?
We can certainly do our best.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right.
I also would like to know, we don't have a secretary's report in our packet.
I've never provided one.
Why not?
Because no.
You should.
Isaac's provide one?
Yeah, the treasurer's report's here. She just read it. It's in our packet.
No, she read information that was given to her.
Right.
As the secretary, actually, even in previous years, go ahead.
May I suggest something here? May I suggest that the board has just hired an attorney firm to review all of our documents. This may be an issue that the attorney firm can take up and can give us a recommendation and a response to this. That sounds like an easy
It's
to.
probably a good idea.
That sounds great, considering we're going to go see him tomorrow too, right?
You're going to have an orientation tomorrow,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
but
great.
I don't know that you'll be able to bring up legal issues at that time. But.
Well, they're lawyers, and there are lawyers.
Okay, then
So-
go ahead and bring it up.
Now, as far as my secretary report's concerned, I usually write that the night before or the morning of, and I'm not going to provide a presentation of what I decide to speak about, which, again, anything that I do in my capacity as secretary or even as a member of this board, it's reportable. It's reportable to the people who put me here, and I am not going to be stifled, Mr. Sullivan. And similar to when I sent you my inputs for the agenda, which I had sent to you for the November meeting, and because I couldn't be here due to extenuating circumstances, I said, well, then I would like those in the December meeting. I sent that to you a month prior, sir, and you decided that that wasn't going to make the cut for the agenda. So no, I will not be providing you a draft of what my report will be prior to the meeting, because that also violates my oath as a director in talking about what I'm going to be doing at the meeting before I do it.
Very good. Also, maybe while you're getting all this stuff to me that I'm stifling you, you could, last July, you were going to get back to me on another item and claim where you were wrong, and I referred you to the correct place, and you said you would read it that night and get back to me. That was in July sometime. I'm still waiting.
What was
I
that?
believed it. That was when you claimed that Jennifer Link could not use the teen center, the activity center, based on the fact that she was no longer a member, having sold her house, and that the Phyllis Giblin yoga class that wanted to bring her in as a guest, you said they were not allowed any guests. And I pointed out to you were in the rules and regulations, particularly specific to the activity center / teen center, does provide for letting guests. So you told me you would read that and get back to me. I still haven't heard. December 1st or December 2nd, you said you'd give me your input as to the dates available for the January special meeting workshop to work on the ad hoc committees. I haven't heard back from you on that. I sent out another email at the end of last week, I believe, or early this week, asking all directors to provide several dates in January they would be available for that meeting. I also haven't heard from you. So it goes on.
On that one, I don't think. I haven't seen anybody's dates.
Well, with regard to any email that you send me, sir, when I send you an email, you're very condescending and you tell me how wrong I am and how that's not going to be appropriate for a meeting, or it's not going to be appropriate for anything having to do with what your agenda is for the meeting. So I did elect to, as it is on the agenda for us to talk about this, I did elect to bring my dates with me to the meeting, which I'm prepared to discuss, as that is last on the agenda. So, and then with regard to Ms. Link and Ms. Giblin, I don't recall specifically what you're talking about, but I'll go back through my emails and I'll go find it.
Well, we have the emails too.
I'm glad you have them, sir. So I will go research it as well.
Anyway, this is getting a little bit overburdensome, I think, and we'll move on to the executive officer's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the sake of brevity, I just have a few things to report. One of which I want to give folks the heads up that all of our traffic control signs are now in place. I think we have one that we have to reinstall because of the windstorm blew it down. But in my conversations with the sheriff, enforcement of those should begin probably in that week of the 7th of January. So I want to give folks a heads up. Start practicing obeying the speed signs now so that you won't have difficulties later. Also, we have been doing a survey of all of the electrical meters and lights on the fort. There's over 100 of them, and we have found 9 of which are not operating. They're not functional. So that has been put into a work order for the electrical company to come and repair those things. Ms. Perkins has asked for an update on the energy audits. Those have not been conducted. Those are going to be rather in-depth and thorough of the buildings, not of the 100+ meters that are out there. One step at a time. Finally, the hunt is doing very well. Since the season began in August the 1st, you may recall that we had anticipated revenue in the neighborhood of $85,000. Already since August the 1st, we have generated some $68,000, so we're very close to budget as it is now. And I anticipate that with the corralling of certain corralling of the deer by the trapper, that should easily bring us up to about $75,000. So we're getting very close to meeting budget, and we still have a couple of months left of the hunt season.
How long does our hunt go to? It goes past the regular hunting, but January, February?
End of February, I believe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And compared to last year's numbers, how does this measure up?
Well, of course, we're not
Revenue-wise.
finished with the year. We could do, I guess spectacularly, but I believe that last year was in the neighborhood of 110, if I'm remembering.
By this time of year?
110,000. Oh, not by this
Or
time.
like to the end?
I don't have that number.
I'd be curious for that because with the rates that were doubled, I'd be curious to see in comparison for maybe next month what it looked like last year in January versus this year.
It'd be very difficult to say that because the rates were doubled that there was a reduction because there are many, many factors. And the ranches surrounding us are also having a lighter year. So it's not a cause and effect type thing that you can point to and say, but we can try to find that number for you if that would help.
Yeah, I'd like
you.
to see that if you don't mind. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Richard.
I've noticed a couple of street signs that have been knocked down, but they look like they've been actually knocked down. Does anybody
I think
notice
that
those two?
there near Scales Road is the one that I saw.
One down by the
and I
golf
think
course
that
down
was-
there also,
I-
and there was another one.
Yeah, I think that windstorm was
You think they're really
ferocious.
from the, because some of them,
But,
they're just, some of the wood signs are just busted, like somebody.
I
had-
don't know.
I
don't
just
know.
noticed them and I wanted to
Yeah.
let you know that.
Well, and with that too, did any of our buildings sustain damage from that windstorm?
I'm not aware of any.
Was an inspection conducted to look for that?
No, ma'am, not specifically.
Okay, I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We now move to committee reports. The first one is the airport committee.
I have that report. This is from the airport committee. Over the past 2 months, we had 3 visiting pilots. 2 were visiting members of the association, and 1 was here as a potential resident to learn more about the airport and the fort. The potential resident had attended one of our fly-ins in the past. The weather has prevented us from scheduling an open house or fly-in, so we're tabling it until the spring. That's the report.
Okay, thank you. Architectural committee?
Morning.
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 I'm going to give you reports for October, November, and December. October because I wasn't here last month. And we had 3 meetings and 14 permits. November would be the normal report that I would give today. And we had 2 meetings and 9 permits. And I'm going to give you December because we're not meeting Christmas Day or New Year's Day. So I can give that report today because I'm not going to be at the next meeting. So anyway, December we had 3 meetings and 9 permits. And there will be no meetings on Christmas or New Year's Day. Most of the pit permits were for painting, fences, and just miscellaneous stuff. Roof. And we had a member question placement of manufactured homes and the foundations, CC&R state permanent cement foundations. And there's a lot more to it than that, and the state and federal regulations override our CC&Rs, so some of it could kick in there. We sent out violation notices for weeds and cutting grass, trash, and working without permits. And some reminders, we're continuing to work on getting out compliance property cleanup. You need a permit to do any outside repairs. And I don't know whether this is an architecture committee thing or not, but if you have a large item for trash, you need to submit a work order for things like tires and mattresses and appliances so they're not sitting on the curb for weeks at a time.
Is that a cost to the member if they have stuff to pick up like that?
Yes, there is. Mr. Lawrence probably could answer that better than I can, but I'm pretty sure there is a charge for that. So.
You just answered it.
Okay.
So a member would need to submit a work order to pick up large items. I'm asking this so that we can make this announcement for other people.
You know, I'm not sure exactly what items they do pick up. I've had people say to me, you know, this person's had this stuff sitting on the curb for weeks at a time, and you know, that kind of kicks into not keeping your place cleaned up. So maybe it is an architectural thing, and maybe it's not. But I know as I ride around the Ford, I sit in one place in 3. They had a mattress and I don't know what all sitting there, and it had been there for quite a while. And so, maybe they don't realize they need to do that or whatever. But
so my question to Mr. Lawrence, since we're about to have Christmas, and Christmas is going to be very messy, would it be appropriate to send a dispatch that says, here are the things that we will pick up, and here's what you need a work order for?
No, I don't think so.
And the fee?
No.
Because I didn't know there was a fee to pick stuff up that's larger than trash.
That fee went into effect about 5 years ago. The mattresses.
It depends entirely upon the items, and
Yeah.
entirely upon how many, and entirely on how big of a load, and no, it can't be done that way.
So we're saying that we can't tell members at what point they're going to get charged for their trash pickup? It doesn't seem very fair.
What do you mean, at what point?
Well, Mr. Lackness just said that if you have large items like a mattress and whatever else you said,
Put in a work order.
and then there's a fee for that. So my question is, why can't we send a dispatch that tells people items like this require a work order and they have XYZ in amount for fees? I think that's a pretty fair thing to send to membership, because I believe another member had gotten a surprise bill for something like that, for picking up some sticks or something, and she wasn't expecting a bill for that. So I think on our part we can probably be a little more accommodating to the members, if it's possible. I mean, I think it'd be appreciated.
If I'm not mistaken, it is written down someplace.
We have a procedure that we follow, and that includes the maintenance will go by, they will examine, they will put a sticker on the door, which, yeah, this is a procedure that is followed, and so, yeah.
Where's the procedure at? Because I'll go find it and I'll post it. Where's it at?
There is not a written procedure that says these are the steps you follow. There is a procedure which we follow, and it is simply that maintenance will go by. If maintenance sees trash, they will issue a little notice. That notice is to contact maintenance. Maintenance then arrange for the payment. The payment is made. The trash is then picked up. So very often when trash stays there for quite some time, it's because the person has not come in to pay the fee for us to go pick it up. And then it does indeed become an architectural issue.
But we don't know the fees, correct?
It depends on what the items
depends
are.
on the items, the types, the size, the big load, etc.
But there's no list that says that.
No.
Okay. Well, I think maybe that's something we probably should explore. But sorry to commandeer that, but as someone who does watch every penny that I spend, I'd like to know what I would be spending to have that item picked up.
If you put it on your curb, then maintenance will let you know.
But that's not a very professional thing for us to tell members. It's just not. I'm sorry, but it isn't.
I'm sorry. Okay, I think this needs to be handled at a different time. This is not the time or the place to review the maintenance procedures. It's been working this way for quite some time, and it does work. So let's continue, please.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Maria, the election committee.
I was given this report when I walked in, so bear with me as I read it, because this is my first time reading this. It says, Election Committee Report. The committee met on 11/28 to establish election dates. We recommend the following dates to the board. They are based on last year's and the 2019 calendar. We believe these dates will allow the committee and the executive officer and administrative staff sufficient time to prepare and provide all necessary forms and mailing supplies. If approved, we will publish the dates. Thank you for your consideration. Do you want me to read all of these dates aloud?
Yes.
Okay. January 2nd. All candidate date sheets and resumes for the Board of Director are due by 5 p.m. in the Administration Office front desk, no exceptions. January 3rd. Committee will review and verify candidate data sheets and submit to the Executive Officer by noon. January 16th. Board meeting. Committee will submit to the board a list of verified candidates. The candidates will draw for a ballot position at the board meeting. The board may determine the method in which the drawing is done and may request that the election committee do so. January 30th. Prior to this date, the executive officer shall prepare for and print the ballot, resumes, instructions to voters, and pros and cons of proposals if required. January 30th. 60 days before the annual meeting. Date of record for property owner membership. February 8th. Prior to this date, but after January 30th, 2019, Executive Officer will prepare, certify, and furnish to the Election Committee a mailing list and labels of and for property owner members as of the record date of January 30th, 2019, including any other materials required by current Texas HOA law. February 11th. Mailing lists will be available to candidates based on the January 30th, 2019 property owner membership roll. Mailing labels may be requested by candidates for a fee. February 13th. Election Committee will fold ballots, resumes, and enclosures and count envelopes. February 14th, Election Committee and each candidate's assistant will stuff, seal, and mail all ballots and enclosures. Envelopes will receive postage through the association's Pitney Bowes postage machine. The committee will ensure that all ballots are sealed and have postage. Committee will deliver the ballots to the Brackaville Post Office before 4 p.m. As a matter of transparency, members may attend the posting and delivery to the post office. Space is very limited. Please notify Board President Dan Sullivan or Executive Officer by February 6th if you wish to attend. Note, if unforeseen problems develop with mailing procedures, such as a lack of candidate volunteers, equipment malfunction, or post office issues, sealed and posted envelopes will be given to the security chief to be locked up overnight. The election committee will mail all envelopes no later than 12 noon on February the 15th, 2019. We do not anticipate this will be an issue. March 15th, deadline for ballots to be received by the auditor for verification and counting. Ballots received after this date will not be counted. Auditor will have a certified list of property owner members with which to verify ballots. March 30th, annual membership meeting. Election results and swearing in of new directors will take place. Auditor will present the results. So I have two comments for this. The first is that each candidate is going to have to provide 2 representatives to attend and assist with the ballot stuffing and the enclosures. And then the second thing is that since I, as the secretary, oversee the election, if someone has an issue with posting and delivery to the post office or any issue with the election, they should actually be talking to me, not the president, because I am the one who oversees that election process per the bylaws. So I'm going to scratch that out and put my name there. And then my third question is, or third point, is that I have yet to receive any notification about what the election committee is doing, so I'm going to have to message the committee myself and find out. But do we know how many people have submitted their names for candidacy?
Okay. Thank you for giving the report, Maria, and thank you to the election committee and Sandra Hagan for all their work putting this together.
Well, I just asked a question. Do we know how many people have put their names in for candidacy? Well, it's not in the report, so how many people have put their names in?
This is a report on procedure.
This is the process that's going forward. I'm going to make a motion that this report submitted by the election committee with the 2 changes that Maria Perkins wanted to make on there added, and one additional one. And the additional one is that the board is designating the CPA accounting firm of Valdez Jumpfin to function as the election result accounting firm. Do I have a second to that motion?
Hunfin,
Well, we're gonna need discussion on that.
Junfin, they did it last year.
They did it last year at considerably less than we'd been paying in the past, like $4,000 less.
I second the motion.
The motion is seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, well, how much is she charging? Because I thought we had to vote on that as a separate line item.
I
And
think
we're in the middle of committee reports, so that's not on the agenda for us to vote on.
there's no reason we can't include it as part of the committee report.
Actually, I have a point of order to that
Okay, well,
because,
you can vote whichever way you want, I guess, but
well, I do have a point of order because you have previously stated that if it's not on the agenda, we're not voting on it. So this is not an agenda item, so I don't understand why we're voting on it when I have no documentation for what this cost is.
we vote on committee reports, and the committee report was on the agenda.
We don't vote on
And
committee
we're
reports, sir.
accepting the changes that you added to it, so all
This
those
is
in
not an action
favor?
item, sir. I have a point of order for this.
Okay. I'm gonna call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed?
What are we actually voting on?
What you're voting on
Itself?
is, are you gonna approve this for these dates? If you don't, the election may not be able to go forward.
Well, that,
And
those
it's
dates are
also-
set by our bylaws.
Hmm?
Those dates are set by our bylaws.
Right, but it says not all of them. And it says the board will set those dates. The board will set the record date. The committee recommends that date be January 30th. The law restricts when that date can be. And now it's up to the board to vote and say, yes, that's okay, we approve that, or no, we don't approve it, and maybe there won't be an election. I don't know.
No, but what you're trying to add in there is voting for the auditing firm as well. And that is not on the agenda. That is not an action item on the agenda. So, sir, if that was something that we were going to vote on, that should have been on the agenda.
I vote for the dates, but like she's saying, it's not on, it wasn't a vote as far as to vote for the accounting firm. Like it's gonna make
It's-
much difference or a
You're
lot.
voting, you're voting
I'm voting
to,
for the dates just as it's presented.
you're voting, the motion is to approve the report from the election committee.
Okay.
That should be
That's
pretty simple, understandable.
Okay, but you put the.
And this is their report. If you approve this report, then these dates are valid and okay.
But that was not the motion that you put forward, sir. You added in there also the auditing agency.
Okay, take it out, and then we'll take out the changes you made also.
Those are also dictated by our bylaws. So you can go back to the bylaws and get those out of there as well.
Okay, I accept an amendment to the motion to change the motion to simply approve the election committee's report.
There you go.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm abstaining.
3 in favor, 1 abstention.
I'll put that up for you. I'll get it.
Oh, I get that. Golf committee.
Wait,
Keep going.
Oh, the equine committee, sorry about that.
Good morning. The board currently has 3 facility use agreements that was, I believe, in your packet this month. One from the horse club, one from the executive officer, and one from the equine committee. If you have any questions, about any of that, please feel free to ask. That's about all I have to report at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Golf committee.
They actually did not meet, but they brought in that piece of machinery last week when it was so windy on Thursday afternoon. The machine itself was very impressive. The cost is very high. I think that they're looking at some other things. They're trying to find a way to maybe even try to buy that machine. I don't know that they'll get it done. But after taxes, everything on that piece of machinery, it was right at $39,907. Very impressive. Would be great to have, but I have no clue where they think they're going to raise that much money. They are back to looking at some different options again. We did have a tournament for a fundraiser tournament to buy a bench for one of our employees' sons died of a massive heart attack. That tournament was well attended. They did buy the bench, and there's going to be some money left over to put into a trust fund for his little girl. But it was a very well attended tournament that day. That's all. We have to meet. They wanted to meet today. I had this meeting today, so they're still pushing me to meet, and I don't know when they're going to do it. They have to sit the Los Morris tournament.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yes.
I have a question for the golf committee, if you don't mind passing it on, Ms. Isaacs.
Okay.
Do we know anything more, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Lawrence knows too, but do we know anything more about that mud proposal, something about the pond or whatever that is?
No.
As far as I know, no. I've heard some rumors that it's happening on the golf course, and I heard somebody else tell me it wasn't happening on. I have no clue.
I met with them last week, and they presented a couple of alternatives. They're not ready to present to the board yet.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I'd heard another thing yesterday on it, so I have no clue.
Okay.
Okay, preservation committee.
Well, we continue with the same two projects we had before. The Dickman Hall awning, so far I've gotten one bid out of going face to face and calling on the phone trying to get bids for this. I had one gentleman come a couple of weeks ago, took one look at it, and he never got back to me again. So that's kind of where we stand. What we're going to do is put another ad in the paper to cover Eagle Pass for the Dickman Hall awning. See what we can get there. I'll make some phone calls, see if we can get anything. But one way or another, if we only come up with one bid, the one existing bid that we have is from a gentleman here in town, we'll open that bid and present it to the board. And then you all can decide yes or no on that. But I want to get going on this before the spring rains come, because we've already lost probably about a third of part of the floor down on the first floor, and we need to get that awning up. We need to get some sort of protection before the rains come. So, and then we have on top of just approving the bid, then I have to go back to the Texas Historical Commission, and that takes another 30 to 60 days to get their approval before we can even begin work. So you can see this could go right into early spring if we don't move ahead on this pretty quick.
I do have a question for you about that. I'm sorry
Sure.
to interrupt. Mr. Hope had suggested targeting specific companies that do that specific job. Have you had any success with that?
Yeah, the gentleman we got the bid from, he does work not only in this local area, but he has it throughout South Texas for another outfit, and they do awnings. And I've talked to specific awning companies, and I don't get much feedback from them. There's I don't know whether it's because it's a historical building and you've got to go through all the rigmarole that goes with that, or what it is. It's a fairly simple job if you look at it, but again, you also have to have insurance. There's a lot of companies around, small, mom and pop outfits don't have liability insurance, so we're kind of, that limits us to what we can accept.
And have you posted this on social media at all?
We posted in the newspaper as per the standard. We posted it in the Kenny County Post. We tried into the Del Rio, and that didn't seem to work out too well, and also Uvalde. So we've put it out there, and like I say, I've made phone calls, based on the internet and so forth to try to get some sort of interest in it.
Well, if you like, you can send me your advertisement and I can put it on my social media page, and perhaps the fort can put it on theirs as well. But social media is going to give you a few more legs.
Okay,
So
okay.
I wonder if one of those retractable awnings would work.
but
That you wouldn't have to keep it up all the time and only try to put it up when it's really raining or something out there.
don't you have to be
How would
in?
it really affect, does that building have a marker on it?
Yes, it does.
It does
Yeah.
have a marker on it.
Yeah, that's why I don't think the retractable, I'll put it this way, I've already gone to the Texas Historical Commission with what we were looking at, an idea, and I specifically stated a non-retractable because the original awning was obviously back in the 40s and it was non-retractable, so.
Right, that was going to be my question. Don't we have to stay with the integrity of the building from that
You
age?
can work with them, they'll work with you on a lot of different things if you just work with the historical societies. I didn't know if y'all even thought about that.
I had thought about it, but,
Because if you only connect it to the building, and it's retractable, that can always come back off. That awning itself could, if something come up. Because kind of like the awnings on on the trailers and stuff. There's companies all the way out, everywhere that makes those retractable awnings.
okay.
And you're connecting that to your framework. I don't know, just think.
Okay. We'll take a look at it. I'll contact the Texas Historical Commission, see if they'll, buy off on a retractable. Okay, and the second one is the Seminole Hall windows. Again, we're putting advertisements in the newspapers for that. Hopefully by January we can get some feedback, and then we'll probably have to do the same thing, call around and see if we can get some. But we've already had one gentleman who's done local work has shown interest in it, so I'm pretty sure we can get somebody to do that. I mean, we've already did it once before on the either end of the building, so I'm pretty sure we can get that done without too much of a problem. And the last I've got is, I understand that there's work orders online that we can put those in, work orders on. I've talked to the yes, sir, go ahead.
Work order at fortclark.com.
Tried it, didn't work, so. I've tried it, some of the other people, the committee have tried it, and we
I
can't.
get them every day.
I don't know what the deal is.
Find one of those dispatches, because that's
It's at the bottom of it.
It's at the bottom of one of those, and see if you can't go straight in there off of one of the dispatches.
Okay,
When you're
okay.
saying it's not working, what do you mean it's not working?
Well, I just couldn't bring it. I put in the work orders at fortclark.com, and I
It's
got
an
nothing.
email address, so you send an email to that email address, and
Okay.
then they'll get it that
That's an
way.
email address.
Okay, sounds good. And that's all I've got. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Another bill.
Recycle report of December 19th, 2018. On November 28th, we shipped 2 truckloads with 52 large cartons and 41 bales of cardboard. We should get a check in January. Helping with the loading is Helena McBride is saying many thanks to Joe Alactus and also the maintenance staff for the help in the loading. The forklift is fixed, but the back door remains hard to open. We will close December 27th and December 29th.
Thank you. Community Council report.
Good morning. This Thursday, we are hosting the 1st through 5th grade classes from the Brackettville schools at the Post Theater for a showing of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We will also have a 7 p.m. showing this evening for the community, anybody that would like to come. Saturday, we have a 7 p.m. showing of the classic Irving Berlin White Christmas movie. This was originally scheduled for last Saturday, but we had no heat at that time, so we had to cancel. Our open house happened last month, right after the board meeting. or the weekend after the board meeting last month. It was well attended. I'd like to thank Sandra Vance and Tiana Johnson, who put the open house on single-handedly. Also to Sandra Vance, who made jambalaya and pork sliders as a fundraiser, and to Bob Hendricks, who donated the money to purchase the food. And I also want to thank Christy for getting me all kinds of information on the fort to put out on a table for the fort. The last thing I have is that our annual meeting for Community Council is Saturday, January 12th at 10 a.m. here in the boardroom. We have 3 openings coming up on our board, and we'll be voting new members in the January meeting. Remember, if you are a lot owner, member of Fort Clark Springs, you are a member of Community Council, and we would love for you to join us. And that's all I have. What are your 3 open positions? Secretary, treasurer, and vice president. The treasurer position is a 1-year position because it was being covered through half of a term. So it's a 1 year, then that'll be reelected for a 2-year. The other 2 are 2-year terms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon will come and do the Fort Clark.
Before we have the members' comments, I want to make sure that everyone, if you don't have the corrected agenda with the action items, and you may not be aware that action item A on the original proposed agenda, considering approval, the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 17th, is removed as an action item. Minutes being approved is not part of an action item, and it's under old business, seeing it goes back to October 17th, so that is not an action item.
Fort Clark Days?
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see that on the agenda. I don't know if we could accept
Well,
it.
It's part of Community Council. I have a statement that has been prepared by Allison Watkinson, and it is pretty much the feeling of all of us on the Fort Clark Days Planning Committee, and I'll read that to you all right now. After much discussion at our last meeting, the Fort Clark Days Committee has decided to cancel Fort Clark Days for 2019. While we know that we can raise sufficient funds, thanks to Linda O'Brien, she did that last year, to fund the living historians and infrastructure of Fort Clark Days, efforts seem bleak to get big money sponsorships this year. With the board requiring us to once again make money for historic preservation in sizable amounts, we cannot see a way forward to accomplish this goal. Our volunteer pool has been greatly diminished for both event chairs and event support. With the constant negative remarks and mischaracterizations of the Fort Clark Days Planning Committee by the board, it has been very difficult to get new volunteers. Insurance has not always been a requirement in the past. It was not a requirement prior to 2014. That in itself saved previous Fort Clark Days more than $2,500. With the need for insurance at all fundraising events for Fort Clark Days, we end up cutting into money raised and expending a lot of effort for only a little gain. The time it has taken to nail down these details for our fundraisers has cost us greatly in time needed to advertise, in which in turn cost us in attendance and fundraising dollars. Our last fundraiser took a month to nail down insurance costs, and we ended up with only 17 people in attendance. And that was the Thanksgiving dance. The band felt so sorry for us, they gave us a refund on what they were charging. While we have reduced our footprint, we are being criticized for the cost of the rental of the buildings. We no longer use Seminole Hall or the commissary. We no longer close down the street between the museum and Seminole Hall. Yet criticism continues with statements about how much we are asking for. Not only is this a fundraising event for historical preservation, a historical educational opportunity for schools in surrounding counties, and a wonderful community event. It is also a huge marketing opportunity for Fort Clark Springs Association. We have heard from numerous people who have bought property here because of Fort Clark Days, and family recreational memberships as well. In the past, the Fort Clark Days Association was a major sponsor of Fort Clark Days. Prior to 2013, a request for 13 motel rooms for living historians was granted without hesitation. It cost more than $5,000 in cash to bring in the living historians. All of this money is raised by our fundraisers. 2013 to 2017, the $5,000 cost was supplemented by another $1,000 from a private contributor for a $6,000 budget to bring in the historians. This is just the cost of the living historians. Then you have the porta potties, the ice, the flyers, the brochures, etc. And parking does not cover the cost of these additional expenses. At every turn, whether in word or in deed, the board and Fort Clark Springs Association has been a roadblock to the success of Fort Clark Days. The constant lack of support and micromanagement of our planning has seriously hindered us. All of our requests have been delayed or voted on without all the details since we started, and has caused us to repeatedly go back to the fort for clarification. It has also delayed our advertising of our fundraisers and cost a great deal of time to rectify. The full support of the board, Fort Clark Springs Association, and the community is vital in putting on this event. At this juncture, we feel this is not happening. Without that support, there are just too many obstacles to overcome. We would like to see Fort Clark Days go forward in 2020, but feel that there needs to be a major discussion with the association about how to move forward with this event, both in the association's relationship to Fort Clark Days and how Fort Clark Days might be revamped or reimagined going forward. And I thank you all. Would you like a copy of this statement for your folders?
I would.
Yes, thank you.
And if I can, I do want to respond to that, because I am the publicity person for Clark Days. The dates have already been sent statewide and are scheduled to be on websites.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I said the dates and the details of this event have been sent to a list of websites that publicize this event for free. So, I mean, I am not exactly the most excited to hear that you have decided to cancel it, but I do think that if people feel empowered to assist with Fort Clark Days, there's still time to do that. I don't think that I know there's a lot of negativity about what happened at the last meeting. I did watch it, and it was very uncomfortable to watch, and I do apologize that Community Council and Fort Clark Days had to endure that. But on the same token, this event shouldn't be completely on the shoulders of the fort to fund. And let me just get through this. Well, anybody that's putting together any kind of festival or whatever, any event, this festival had not been solely funded by the fort in the past. No. It hadn't been. And it's not fair to assume, and I know, sir, that you're shaking your head no, but it's not fair to assume that the fort's going to just continue as they have in the past, especially when you see the cost of everything that we're paying for rising. And then there's just more cost added to everything else around us. So it does make me sad that that's what the determination is of the committee. But on the flip side, I don't know how soon fundraising starts because I'm not in charge of fundraising. But what I have seen in the past in other organizations is the second that event is over, They're securing those sources of financial support then. So what I would have recommended to you, had I known what I know now, is coming to the board the second that that event ended and asking for the support that you needed a year in advance, so that you're not having to play these games where I mean, a lot of it is games where certain details are left out, and then you have to go back and clarify because it wasn't discussed correctly or accurately, and maybe because of the information that was presented to us. I mean, so it's a two-way street. It's not just on the board, but it's on the committee as well.
Right.
But
there's a lot of other factors thrown into this too. We don't have volunteers. We can't get volunteers to do anything. The fundraiser that we had at Hunter's Roundup, Linda and I had a booth, and we raffled off a cooler filled with stuff. And there were a lot of people from the fort there. Only one person bought a raffle ticket. We got a $5 donation from some nice gentleman. He doesn't live here on the fort.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It was outsiders that bought all the raffle tickets.
Which is who should buy raffle tickets. I mean, because if you think about it, you don't want to keep taking from the same people here. You want to expand. You do want to expand.
But if they're going to the event and spending money for that event at Hunter's Roundup, why can't they fork out another $5 for a raffle ticket?
Well, and I hear that, but I also can't speak to that. But what I can say is that it's not fair to assume that the membership is just going to dish out cash to donate when they already do come and spend their money whenever the people are here to sell their stuff.
But
so
it's a string of things.
It is.
We're not getting
vendors.
No vendors wanted to come this year. Entertainment. We asked one band in particular twice, and he refused both times.
Did they say why?
He didn't want to play on Fort. And if we wanted his whole band, we couldn't have afforded it.
Mm-hmm.
It's astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
The band that plays at Julie's on Tuesday night, he would not give us a break on price. We contacted the mariachi band from Del Rio. They're going to be in competitions. They can't come. So even getting entertainment, it's just been one thing after another. And so we voted. It was almost unanimous. It was 8-2 to not have Fort Clark Days this year, or 2019. So we're just going to regroup and revamp it and come up with something better for 2020.
So does that mean you're going to start fundraising now for 2020?
We most probably will, and hopefully we won't have to rely on a whole lot from the fort. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sharon. It's really sad. It's a shame. And the board has been reluctant to put full-hearted support behind Fort Clark Days. It seems one restriction after another limitation, which may be necessary, but it's sad. All right, Cecilia Sanchez, you're signed up here.
Sorry about the late notice. I really don't need this thing. I'm loud as it is. I'm here to ask you to take into consideration to do something about the speedsters on Fort Clark Road. I witnessed something here Tuesday evening while I was on my front porch. My heart not only almost stopped, but it almost came out my chest. This car, it was a white car with a young man with his windows down, speeding up Fort Clark Road at least 60, maybe 70 miles an hour. He did not stop. Nobody stops in either direction. These new signs that are up, they mean nothing. They've meant nothing to these residents in the 11 years I've been here. This boy almost killed me because of shock to my body. Nobody would have known what caused my heart attack. I called the front gate immediately because now these days we go around with our cell phone in our hand or our pocket or our purse. I told the man at the gate Tuesday evening by 6 o'clock, it was 5:56. I'm Mrs. Sanchez. I live right here in front of the motel by the stop sign. I just witnessed this young man going down the road 60, 70 miles an hour. He was gone.
We all
I
share your concerns, Mrs.
Pardon
Sanchez. We all share your concerns. This is actually not an agenda item.
I know that, but it was under members' comments. I'm sorry.
We appreciate it. We do understand
All right,
that.
I just had a chance to see you all together. I saw yesterday where you were having a meeting this morning at 9:30. It was my opportunity to come over here. I never come over here.
Well,
I've been here 5 times in 10 years.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm happy
I'm
you
letting
come.
know.
I hope you come more
Sorry,
often.
I bothered you.
No, you
If
don't have to be
something
sorry at
happens
all.
and you get sued, don't say you weren't warned.
Well,
Ms. Sanchez,
Ms. Sita.
Ms. Sanchez,
Let me turn around because I can't hear. What?
you may not have heard my announcement at the beginning of the meeting that the sheriff will begin enforcing these traffic control after the 1st of January. There will be a police presence on the fort.
I hope so.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we
Pray for it.
we understand.
Something's gonna happen.
We understand your issue and we are addressing it.
Well, I said, I saw the notice that there was a meeting. I
Okay.
thought I'd show up, and I'm sorry.
no, you don't have to be
Thank
sorry.
you, Mr.
Thank you.
Rich.
Come again.
Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Sanchez.
Kathy Warren?
I was mistaken like Mrs. Sanchez. When I looked at that sheet, it said members' comments right there. Right out the bar. It did not say members' comments pertaining to action items, so I'm
Sure, I
also.
just wanted to let her know that we are aware of the problem. We
Oh, yeah,
all
it's fine.
share it, and we're doing something about it.
I agree with you, but I want to say mine, it doesn't really pertain to action items, but it does pertain to Fort Clark Days. This is just an FYI for you people. Dan, thank you. As some of you probably know, maybe not know, Wally and I have been coming down here since 1985. We are very good volunteers. Bill Herman and Debbie, we have been involved in Fort Clark Days for a long time. As Sharon said, volunteers, okay? This is the best record that I could find. Back in 2009, we had 22 volunteers. Every one of those, that was a chair. They chaired those committees. Back in 2010, we had 27 chairs and committees. And they went out, they had fundraisers, they did the 5K run, they did a lot of advertising. Okay, in 2011, we bumped up to 29 volunteers and chairs. I mean, we were cruising. we cruised. In 2013, we had 28. And we would still had, everything was in order. And as Sharon said, 2018, 8. That's all we had, 8 volunteers. And the committee decided right then and there, we had to stop it. We could not get anybody to advertise. We could not get anybody to volunteer. We couldn't get anybody to step up. And like Bill and I have been involved forever with the barricades and the beer and everything and the soda. Never in all my time, and I'm so sorry if you take this all personal, in all the years that I have been volunteering for Fort Clark Days, it has always been a success, even though the weather's been crappy sometimes, and sometimes it's nice. I have never, ever, ever been so tired of jumping through obstacles, jumping through the loops, going back and forth, trying to do this and trying to do that. And I don't really remember us having to have everything okayed. Now, regards to the rooms and all that, I understand, the motel and everything like that. But the gun club has always been a contributor, a major one. And yes, we're going to get our check back. There's absolutely... Maria, what I would suggest you do is just get on the website like you did before and just say, due to circumstances, Fort Clark Days has been canceled. That's it. It's a very simple little announcement. And if people want to say why, tell them the truth. We got no volunteers. That's not good English. We have no volunteers. And we came up with the idea that, okay, maybe we're going to try for 2020. And if we want to do the fundraising, yes, it has to start now. But what I said, 10 people can't do this. I mean, we're all burned out. We have no time. And I just want to let you know, FYI, and I went back as far as I could get my records, and I can show you, if you guys are interested, I can show you every committee and who chaired it, and Debbie knows, right?
I picked it up one year and chaired it because there's nobody
That's right.
volunteered. But in 2016, you're lucky you have 8 this year, because in 2016, we didn't even have 4.
I know, we're all part of that. My husband, he just loves
Even
me.
an out-of-towner had to come in and sell the chances
I
and
know.
everything we had.
But
We didn't even have somebody step up to the plate that day.
I know. And, I guess we're all.
It's sad. It's
It is
sad.
horrible. And everybody agrees, Saturday's kind of cool, but Friday's the greatest.
Mm-hmm. The kids.
I mean, if I had that kind of education when I was in school, I would actually know what's happening in the whole world. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, not yet, please.
Are y'all going to try to secure the living historians for 2020 now?
We're going to try again, but same thing, and as maybe you all don't know, I hate to use that word. Okay, the living historians, they go from festival to festival to festival, and the only reason we have it the first week of March is because, other than that, those guys are booked. And God forbid if they have to wear those uniforms during the summertime, they'll just die. But that's what we're aiming at. But Sharon and Linda, they need to take a break. I mean, that's it. Now for this next one, I have a very quick one because do you guys have a master list of your emails? So instead of me writing letters, hard copy letters, can I just email a letter? I have no idea how to get your emails, your addresses.
I'll give it to you right now if you want it.
Yeah, I don't have a pen.
Here's a pencil.
I mean, if you guys want to go for it, I just, you got
I can write it down for you. I'll just write it on a piece of paper here.
All right. What about Dan and Bill? Do you guys get email?
Sure. Sullivan 3926
3926?
at yahoo.com.
Oh, okay.
Just a comment on your volunteer situation.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes there's maybe some extenuating facts that play in there that it would be well for the people running Fort Clark Days to be aware of. But way back, well not way back, but I think probably around 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, my wife and I, 2 years in a row, volunteered to work at Fort Clark Days. No one ever contacted us. One year we finally were able to track down Jim and Deb Tischler, and they set us up selling beer over in the commissary building. But you volunteer like that, we have volunteered for other things and the same thing. No one ever contacts us.
Well, Fort Clark Days has been going on for a long time. You could just always volunteer. That's how I got into it. I just said, do you need any volunteers? Because otherwise, if you don't volunteer, you don't learn.
Right. No, I agree. And
that's it.
I found out about Fort Clark Days needing volunteers by being in the back of the meeting, and that's the only way I got involved. So what I might suggest, and I can help with that since I was offering to do publicity, is, what was that? Oh, but I mean, I can help with it, and we can maybe make a promo video to encourage people to get involved, and then you start building your volunteer now for the next year. But I'll talk with Lisa and with Sharon and see what we can do. But the volunteer part of it, I mean, that's nothing that the board can dictate. I mean, we can't tell people you have to volunteer.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just here for Fort Clark Days, and
Right.
I have. If the board didn't have to okay everything, we'd be cruising. But that's I don't want to get political.
Well,
all
a
I'm
lot
saying
of it,
is,
though, is piecemeal. There was no big plan put at one time.
Maria, I know that we've been doing this since
Yeah.
1985. Trust me.
Yeah,
And
no.
the reason I don't understand. There's a lot of people that do not work. They could volunteer, and the Tishlers, like I told Richard, Deborah Tischler was the CYA queen, and I never knew what that meant until now.
Mm-hmm.
And she has impeccable records. But okay, that's all I really have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the action items. The first one will be consider an amendment to the FCSA bylaws under Certificate of Fort Clark Springs Association number 3, correcting the date from 21 April to 20 April 2018. Do I have a motion to make that correction?
Motion.
Is there a second to the motion? I'll second the motion. Discussion.
Is this what I brought up a couple of months ago?
It is, Debbie, you are the one that spotted it and brought it to our attention. And it has sat now for about 2 months' time to do something, so I drafted a simple amendment that simply corrects that date so that we don't have a problem with it.
I guess, has this been discussed with the lawyers? That this is the right way to do it? No?
I don't believe it has been discussed
No at all?
with the lawyers, but I think,
No, it needed to be done, and that was what I was kind of questioning, if it's the thing that I brought up. I'll second, or you seconded the motion, okay.
so, is there any other discussion?
Yes, I have, given the information that was given to us about the declarations, I don't feel comfortable supporting a document that's subordinate to our declarations when our declarations have not been done according to this complaint that I have and all the supporting documentation to it. I don't feel comfortable doing anything with our bylaws. And in my eyes, these bylaws are not even valid, and we're reverting to the old bylaws until we fix the declarations. So I don't support doing that.
All right, thank you, Maria. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor of the amendment correcting the date? Aye, raise your hands, please.
We don't want to discuss that? Are they even?
I thought we just did discuss it.
Well,
I
no,
said any other discussion.
Because of the declaration not being done.
This is not something to do with the
The
declaration.
declarations
But the bylaws
were done properly. These are the bylaws.
But the bylaws are subordinate to the declarations. And if the declarations...
bylaws were done because the declaration changed. The bylaws were done to match.
The bylaws were done to make changes that the board wanted changed and to conform with Texas state law under Property Code 209, the Business Organization Code, Chapter 22. This is really a very simple thing. There was a typographical, you might call it that, error filling in the date, and they filled in the wrong date by 1 day. It's a 14-page document. The rest of it is fine. And they filled in the 21 instead of 20, simply changing it to 20 to make it okay.
Actually, sir, that's not accurate either. The place where I signed, this is my fault for not reading it all the way, that the way that statement was written, it made all of those bylaws null and void. And so in what you're proposing, that change has been made. So it's not just changing the date. But again, the bylaws are subordinate to what our declarations are. So if our declarations are not correctly done, which they are being contested, then I do not think we need to be dealing with amendments to bylaws that are currently not even technically in effect.
Mr. Sullivan, may I?
Yes,
comment?
please.
And just food for thought. So we have a non-attorney member who makes a claim that the declarations are not correct. We also have a non-attorney member who says that we are not an HOA. Do we stop functioning as an HOA because a member suggests that we're not one? I'm going to suggest that the same thing applies to a person who says that the declaration is not correct. The declarations may at some point be challenged, but right now you don't have a challenge. There has been no suit filed. It is not being challenged until that suit is filed. So you continue to operate until a court wraps a gavel and says you can't.
That's very true. I'll also add that this declaration was reviewed twice by attorneys in a law firm, and their input was incorporated and included into it and approved by them. 2 different attorneys with the law firm.
But those attorneys are not a majority vote of the voting members. And that's where we have an issue, And we as a board, I'm not pointing a finger at a specific board member or a past board, we as a board need to address this and we need to deal with it. And before we tell a member, oh, well, you're not an attorney, because guess what, Mr. Sullivan, you're not an attorney either, and you quote the law all the time. So before we throw that at a person and say, well, you're not an attorney, so you don't have a valid reason to throw a point of order or throw a conjecture out about our documents, we need to take that seriously.
I do quote the law, Maria, and I usually quote it verbatim and accurately, not inaccurately. This complaint you have, this same member also posted on their internet or social media that we acted illegally. She made a serious charge. We acted as a board illegally by dealing with the EO's contract in executive session when the law clearly states and provides that personnel issues and contracts be dealt with in executive session. She removed that after a couple of days. And she also seems to have a problem with the bylaws, not understanding the notary process either. She doesn't understand one date, there is a date that the board approved the bylaws. The other date is the date the board signed attesting to the fact that they had been approved and had their signatures notarized. So at any rate, this is a very simple question. I think we've had plenty of discussion. I'm going to call the vote, go ahead, Debbie.
I would like to ask Mr. Lawrence, I know that we've had some problems with a lot of our forms and our documents. Is this one of the things that maybe the lawyers could go through before we would actually start changing stuff?
In your packet is a communication from the attorneys listing several of the documents that should be reviewed and the process for doing that. So, yes, it is. But again, I point out to you that just because a member makes a claim doesn't mean that the board should relinquish its duties and authorities and stop functioning just because a claim is made.
No, there's no, I don't even care about Jenny Alexander's comments. I'm asking as myself because we have found
all of our
several
declarations,
things
all of our
that need to be gone
declarations should
through.
be, not only, I said declarations, all of our documents should be reviewed by the attorneys. And this was one of the reasons I remind you that the board decided to hire this firm so that they could get us into good legal standing.
So then why are we making changes prior to an attorney telling us that we need to do that?
This is a simple change.
No, it's not a simple change because
a claim has been made and the claim is...
Until after they can take a look at it and bring it back up as a vote next month.
All right, I'm
That's what I'd like to see.
I'm calling for a vote. All those in favor of correcting the date signify by raising their hands. All those opposed?
I'm just abstaining for the time being because I...
Okay, the motion passes. 2 in favor, 1 against, 1 abstains.
how does that pass?
Excuse me?
How does that pass?
2 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Oh, because you
I
abstained.
abstained because I wanted to do something different.
So then based on that, then the verbiage in line 3 is not going to be changed to make these not null and void. Is that correct? Because that wasn't your motion.
The motion is to change the date from 21 April to 20 April on line 3, number 3.
So the number 3 is going to read that all bylaws and amendments to these bylaws that were in effect on this day, we're now changing to 20 April 2018, are declared null and void. So that's what we have addressed to say. So now we're saying that our bylaws are null and void.
No.
The ones that were in effect on April 20th.
Which is the date you're
The
making
ones
these
that
bylaws
were
in
effect,
effect.
what it states very clearly then is the ones that were in effect April 20th and or before are null and void, and the new bylaws that are effective April 21st are null in effect.
But that's not the verbiage in these bylaws. That's the verbiage in your new thing. And that's what I'm saying. Your motion and what you're telling people that we're doing and changing a date is not exactly changing the date. You're changing the verbiage of that statement as well.
All right, the motion has been presented, debated, discussed, voted on, passed. We're now going to go to another one consider a motion to send to the FCSA membership for approval a proposed amendment to the revised declarations changing the frequency of the architectural committee meeting from, the change is that, is what it changes is they're required now to meet every week. This new change would only require them to meet twice a month. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is it should be much easier to get volunteers to serve on that committee if they don't have to be there every single Tuesday morning. And as it stands now, technically, when they have no applications and no business brought before them, they don't meet. But the wording in the declaration requires them to meet. So they're in violation of that, technically. So in order to stop that, we'd like to change it that they only have to meet twice a month, but it's a change to the declaration, and the entire membership has to have the opportunity to vote on it. And if it's going to go out with this next election, it probably needs to be approved. Possibly it could still be approved in January and get out with the election.
So that's not going to make it a hindrance to the membership that needs the permits and stuff? Now you're going to have to wait longer to get a permit?
They may have to. They may have to actually do some planning ahead by a week or two before they do a construction project.
And again, they may meet more often at their discretion.
It says one more often.
Yeah, I see that,
So
but
that's-
I don't really see that happening. What if we have an emergency or something and we can't get them together, your roof blows off or something, or I've only got a short frame to get my contractors here or something, and it's 2 weeks before they meet.
Well, we deal with that
And if
now.
they're put off and they're put off, you know, what contractors aren't very reliable around here on getting started on time either.
Debbie, I think what it's basically saying is that if they do not have any applications, they don't meet. Okay?
They're not what it says.
But the declaration says that they have to meet every week. All we're doing is changing it that basically it's mandatory twice a month or more often, so they can still meet every week. It's
They
just that
can-
if they don't have a meeting, they don't have to.
They can, Bill, but they're not required. So the only requirement with this amendment would require them to meet twice a month. They can meet more often if they want to or feel a need to be cooperative and meet more often.
I would like to see this tabled until the attorneys have reviewed our declarations and that complaint from Mrs. Alexander along with all the supporting documentation, because we may be sending the declarations out possibly for a vote, and that could be something that we address at that point.
All right, well, if we do that, that's fine with me. I don't know how it is with Debbie or Bill, but I'll even make a motion to table it, understanding that if it goes out separately from the director's election, it's going to cost you a few $1,000s to put it to the membership. But I make the motion that this be tabled to the January meeting.
I'll second.
We have a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a vote? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, it passes 3-1. Let's move forward. Next is consider a motion to approve a resolution removing former board president Myrna Castle as the authorized agent and contact person for the Harbor Touch POS system account and naming the executive officer as the authorized agent and the comptroller as the authorized contact person.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Now, the POS system, is that what we use down at the
Yes, ma'am.
golf course restaurant,
Yes,
the golf course and up there? Those are the systems, right?
The golf course, the restaurant there, the patio, and the Dickman Bar.
Okay. But it's not the one at the
Different one
golf
for the golf
Okay,
course.
all right.
So I have a couple of questions.
The reasoning for this is they have been a company that has been very difficult to deal with. And I believe if I'm wrong, please correct me, Richard, but there's been an attempt by Mr. Smullen to cancel and end those contracts. And I think they have like automatic renewals or things in there, and they won't talk to anybody here except Myrna Castle. And so in order to negotiate and get those contracts managed correctly, which to us, we want them canceled altogether, quit paying them, we need to have something that requires them to deal with someone here. Although it was the president in the past, in this case, it would probably be not efficient use to name the president now, because you very likely may have a different president in a few months. So the executive officer and the comptroller would be really the natural ones for them, and they're the ones that have to talk to them and deal with them.
And the alternative could be the treasurer. But the point is that we have a POS system that we're not using. We want to get out from under it. They won't even talk to us because they'll talk only to Myrna Castle. So we need to correct that. But as I said, even the treasurer could become the
So you're saying we're paying a contract for POS system we don't even use anymore?
That's what I'm saying.
I was about to ask,
But we
what are we paying
cannot
for
get
that?
out from under it because they will not talk to us. This is why we're trying to fix it.
How long have we not been using that?
I think that the last time we did any kind of what do they call it, a batch was in the August of 18, so.
So why are we just now knowing about
Because they
this?
couldn't get into the accounts because they wouldn't talk to them.
We've been trying to resolve it every
I'm
which
aware,
way, and
yes.
we're now to the point where we can't, so we come to the board to say, help us do that.
Well, I also agree that the treasurer be the point of contact. Or whatever the point was for the board president, whatever that was, then the treasurer.
But here again, in March, there may be a different treasurer.
Well, but just your name, I mean.
Okay.
I mean, you'll still be on the board in March, won't you?
I will be, I hope. Somebody may see me, but I was using the same reasoning as him, not putting his name on it, but then I would still be on the board at that point in time.
It's not an issue.
Yeah, no. I knew we've had some problems getting in contact with a lot of different.
So maybe you could help us with this.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. Do you want further discussion, or are we ready for a vote?
Do you want to?
I'd like to amend the motion. I'd like to amend the motion
Okay,
let me read this motion, hold on. I'd like to approve removing former board president Myrna Castle as the authorized signer and contact person for the Harbor Touch POS system account, and I'd like to name the treasurer, Mrs. Debbie Isaacs, as the authorized signer and the executive officer as the authorized contact person respectively. Is that?
Wait, say that last part.
So I would like to consider a motion to name Ms. Debbie Isaacs, the treasurer, as the authorized signer and the executive officer as the authorized contact person, respectively.
I think it would be wiser to have the comptroller in that position.
Okay, then I'll amend that again
No,
to
but
remove
that part is
executive
already
officer.
there.
Well, but I need to amend that, so I'll remove the executive officer as my recommendation and put comptroller as authorized agent. So I'm going to read that one more time to prevent confusion. I make a motion that we remove former board president Myrna Castle as the authorized signer and contact person for Harbor POS system account and name the treasurer, Mrs. Debbie Isaacs, as the authorized signer and the comptroller as the authorized contact person respectively.
Let's make that Deborah Isaacs.
Deborah Isaacs, for the record.
I'll second that.
well, you won't get to second it. You can accept it as an
Well, I'll
amendment,
accept it. I will accept it.
and it's up to me as the person that seconded it to accept it.
We still
Go ahead, Bill.
discussing?
Yeah.
Okay. This scenario of what we're talking about, to me, is doing business. The board should not be doing business. The board does not do business.
But there's a contract that we're in, and the board is on the contracts.
But we can have a person who is involved daily with this operation. It should be the one who's in charge of this, not a board who meets once a month, doesn't know the inner workings of what's going on. It should be a business person or persons on this, not a board member.
Which is why I'm suggesting the comptroller be the contact person. So anything, I'll take that. So like with any of our other contracts that need to be signed by a board member, if this is a contract, which we've been told it's a contract that you're trying to get out of it, right? So a board member needs to be part of that. Clearly, there was a requirement for a board member to be part of it in the past if the president was that. So it makes sense that the treasurer is that, and then the point of contact for the day is the comptroller. So I don't see issues with that.
Mr. Herman, you make a very good point. However, this particular company is an extremely difficult company to work with, and I think that they would respect the treasurer's position on the board, the treasurer's position, probably more so than they would me. So in day-to-day activity, Ms. Isaacs would authorize the contact person to communicate with the company, and I think it will go smoothly.
All right, I'll accept.
I hope it will go smoothly.
I will accept the amendment. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. We're going to have old business now. That is the minutes from the October 17th regular board meeting. In the packet provided to everyone were 2 sets of minutes for that date, and also a copy of the Robert's Rules of Orders guidelines as to what minutes should be. Just roughly giving a synopsis of it, the minutes should be terse, short, in other words, brief. It should not be a transcript. It should not be a transcript. They should contain what happened, not what was said. So, we have one set of minutes that came from the secretary, and they were done prior to these guidelines being put out. So she did not have the advantage of having those as a guide. We have a second set of minutes that I put forward under those guidelines. There are also a couple other things involving the minutes that were different. But the minutes are approving the minutes are a board issue. The board was provided a copy of both minutes and the guidelines, and so I would think that we could simply vote on this. If any board member has a brief comment to make regarding which set of minutes should be approved as the official minutes, this would be a good time to make those comments. Maria?
Yes, well, you know I'm going to have comments. So I do agree with you with what Robert's Rules of Order say, that that minutes do not have to be verbatim, but they do need to recap the report. And the only issue I have here is that these minutes that you're putting together are an interpretation, your interpretation of what was said, probably, this is my speculation, but probably to conceal exactly what I did say. As I have seen with members that are requesting our minutes, they're looking for what happens in these meetings, and whether we want to hear what someone has to say or not, that's not even a point of contention. the fact of the matter is that, yes, they don't have to be verbatim, but they do need to actually state what was said. And I never once said that a lot of these issues need to be discussed in executive session, which is what you have summed up on your own there. My job is to do the minutes. So I wasn't here last month to defend the minutes, but I feel like it's very important because what I do in my capacity as a secretary doesn't mean I just sit there and verify the minutes are correct or edit the minutes. If I have questions too regarding this fort and regarding the way we do business, I'm entitled to ask those questions. And when membership is coming to me telling me, hey, do you have an answer for this? And I don't have an answer for it because I'm not given the answers or I'm not given any information, the only way that I can report what I'm doing is to report it in that report. And along with those lines, when I went back into previous minutes, I noted that the minutes done by the former secretary were also not as concise as what you're trying to put forward today. So that's all I have to say.
Good, you're absolutely correct. But if we made a mistake in the past and we become aware of it, we want to be big enough to step up and say, okay, let's correct it and get it right, instead of just continually going on doing it wrong. And all those questions that you have a right to ask, you certainly do, but some of them should be in the capacity as a director, not necessarily a secretary, which just has nothing to do with the item at issue right now, which are the minutes. So without dragging this out any further, I would entertain a motion to approve one set of minutes or the others, and then we can vote on it and move on. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Which set of minutes do you move?
For which set of minutes?
I didn't know you said
Yeah.
which set, okay. I would say the more concise.
The minutes submitted by me or the minutes submitted by Maria?
As were submitted by Mr. Dan Sullivan.
Well, thank you. I will second that. And without further ado, I think we can vote on it. And all those in favor of approving those minutes signify by raising your hands. All those opposed? Okay, the motion fails. So now do we have a motion for the other set of minutes?
I think the secretary is the one supposed to be doing the minutes along with the executive secretary, who is Christina. If we need to put some input into it as a board before they get posted, then we need to do that. But you've got enough duties as president to take care of your duties, not the secretaries also.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. I guess when I see a set of minutes and I become aware of how they should be, if I see something's wrong, I propose a correction. The board can accept it or reject it, and they rejected it. So now you're making a motion to approve the Maria Perkins minute. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted by Secretary Perkins? Okay. All those opposed? Motion fails. I'm sorry. So they will be moved forward to January, I guess, and we'll try again to see if we get the October minutes approved. Maybe a compromise can be worked out somewhere along the line.
I'm willing to go through the minutes and prepare a compromise, but I'm not gonna let you rewrite the minutes, sir.
Well, for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into any further deep discussion of the two sets of minutes. I think now we have to discuss a date for a special meeting / workshop for the month of January to deal with the 3 ad hoc committees, rules and regulations, renters, and RV park. Any ideas?
Well, I hadn't answered you because I still had doctor's appointments. I took a doctor's appointment to a closing, so I've got that on the 8th, so I'm pretty much open.
Okay.
The 14th or the 15th possibly?
I can do either of those days.
I know that's the same week we've got our board meeting, but,
I'm just looking for dates. I'm trying to accommodate everyone.
But I can do the 14th or the 15th also.
The 14th and 15th?
Or, yeah, or not both of them, but or one or the other.
Oh, you only want one day?
Well, I can only spend so much time with you wonderful people at one time. I'm sorry. I've got kids.
That's true. I understand. 14th or 15th?
14th or 15th, a Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday that week, we have our board meeting, that same week, so.
Okay.
So possibly Monday, that way we have a day to cool off.
How's the 14th or 15th for you, Bill? It works?
You've got my dates, I'm fine with it.
Okay, well, I can go with the 14th, and so 9:30.
9:30.
Okay, 9:30, January 14th will be a special meeting, and we will handle in that special meeting a workshop for the 3 ad hoc committees, be held here at the boardroom.
Mr. President,
The next,
will you also be dealing with the repair and replacement plan at this meeting, or is that another meeting?
I don't
No.
know. We've been through all of that. He's asking about the repair and replacement plan. When are we going to deal with that?
well, if we can get to it, I would say yes, but I think first we have to we started these ad hoc committees, we gotta get these completed.
Okay, sir.
That's my idea.
Just wanted to raise the flag.
I appreciate that, but I would say that if time allows, then we'll jump into the 10-year repair and replacement plan. We can put that on the agenda.
Could we also put a cap on the time that we're going to have this meeting from? So 11:30 noon, something
Yeah, I
like that?
think 2 hours, after 2 hours, we've been here 2 hours now, people get wore out, and they lose focus and attention, so yeah, does anybody else have a different idea?
No, that sounds good to me.
Okay, 9:30 to 11:30.
Thank you.
All right, the next regular meeting of this board of directors will be Wednesday, January 16th, I believe, 2019, at 9:30 a.m. here in the board room. And I would love a motion for adjournment right
I'll
now.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Done. Okay, we have adjournment. Merry Christmas to everyone. And
As a member, can I say something?
you can come up and talk now. This is the time and the place.